An arrogant millionaire falls into despair upon seeing his only son on the brink of death, until an unknown girl appears, offering the blood that can save him. When he discovers that the girl is his long-rejected daughter from the past, his heart collapses. If you were touched by this beautiful story of resilience and love, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching from. Continuing. Blood Ties. Chapter 1. The Collapse. Robert Bobby, Mitchell's Corner. Office on the 53rd floor of the Mitchell Enterprises Tower in downtown Boston offered a panoramic view of the city he'd conquered. The skyline, parts of which he owned, stretched before him like a personal kingdom. At 54, Bobby had mastered the art of power, when to apply pressure, when to release it, and most importantly, when to remind people that their livelihoods depended on his goodwill. His smartphone vibrated against the polished mahogany desk. The caller ID displayed Westlake Academy, a minor annoyance. He'd specifically instructed his son's school never to contact him directly during business hours. That's what his assistant was for. Still, he picked up, if only to remind them of proper protocol. "Mitchell," he answered curtly. The voice on E. The other end wasn't the headmaster's secretary as expected, but the school nurse, her words coming in fragmented bursts of panic. "Mr. Mitchell, emergency. Your son. Collapsed during lacrosse practice. Ambulance. Massachusetts General." Unresponsive. Bobby's world contracted to those fractured sentences. His knees buckled as he gripped the edge of his desk. Outside his window, Boston continued its busy rhythm, unaware that Robert Mitchell's reality had just imploded. "I'm on my way," he managed, already moving. The 20-minute helicopter ride to the hospital stretched into an eternity. His mind cycling through mundane memories. Ethan's 8th birthday, when Bobby had shown up 3 hours late with an extravagant gift. The school play he'd watched through his phone screen while simultaneously texting his CFO. The parent-teacher. Conferences attended by his personal assistant. Always present in theory, absent in practice. At Massachusetts General, Bobby found himself powerless in the face of hospital bureaucracy. His name, which opened doors throughout New England, meant nothing here. He was just another anxious parent in the waiting room, a foreign country to a man accustomed to VIP treatment. When Dr. Eleanor Winters finally approached, her face revealed what words would confirm. Bobby had spent decades reading people across negotiation tables. He recognized grave news before it was delivered. "Mr. Mitchell, your son has a rare blood condition called diamantine hemopathy. It's attacking his major organs. We've stabilized him temporarily, but his condition is critical. What does he need? A specialist? A procedure? Name it." Dr. Winters maintained eye contact, unfazed by his intensity. "Ethan needs a blood transfusion from someone with an extremely rare blood type, XRH negative with the Bombay phenotype modification. Without it, his organs will continue to fail within the next 24 hours. How rare? 1 in approximately 7 million people. Maybe fewer. Cost isn't an issue. Mr. Mitchell, this isn't about money. It's about finding a compatible donor quickly. We've already alerted the National Blood Bank Network." Bobby's jaw tightened. "That's not good enough." He retreated to a private waiting area, phone pressed to his ear. This was familiar territory, applying leverage, calling in favors, offering financial incentives that bordered on bribes. He contacted the CEO of the largest blood bank consortium in North America, then the director of a genetic research facility in Switzerland, a senator who owed him multiple favors, the head of an exclusive private hospital in Singapore. Each call followed the same pattern. Initial deference to his name and reputation, followed by reluctant admission that his requests were impossible to fulfill. No amount of money could conjure the specific blood type his son needed within the required time frame. Between calls, Bobby visited Ethan in the ICU. The 16-year-old boy looked small against the white hospital sheets, his athletic frame diminished by illness. The constant beeping of monitors provided an ominous soundtrack. Machines performed the work his failing body couldn't manage alone. Bobby studied his son's face, The Mitchell jawline, his late mother's nose, eyebrows that furrowed even in unconsciousness. When had the boy grown so much? When had Bobby last really looked at him? "I'm going to fix this," he whispered, though unsure if Ethan could hear. "Whatever it takes." As midnight approached, Bobby stood at the ICU window, watching his son's chest rise and fall with mechanical precision. His reflection superimposed over Ethan's form, a ghost hovering over the boy, present yet intangible. The symmetry wasn't lost on him. Even now he remained an observer in his son's life, separated by glass. Memory fragments surfaced unbidden. Ethan's first steps while Bobby reviewed. Quarterly projections. The boy's voice changing while Bobby negotiated acquisitions overseas. College discussions postponed for board meetings. Time, the one commodity Bobby couldn't manipulate, had slipped away. Dr. Winters approached with updated test results. "His kidney function is declining faster than we anticipated. We're looking at significant organ damage by morning if we don't find a donor." "I've contacted everyone," Bobby said, his voice hollow. "Blood banks across 3 continents, research institutions, private clinics. Nothing." "We'll keep searching." But Bobby recognized the platitude for what it was. In business, he'd delivered similar empty assurances when deals were beyond salvation. He returned to the private waiting room, loosening his Italian silk tie that suddenly felt like a noose. The night stretched before him, each passing hour another step toward an unthinkable outcome. He'd built an empire predicated on the belief that enough money and power could solve any problem. Now the universe had called his bluff in the cruelest way possible. At 3:17 a.m., a commotion erupted in the hospital corridor. Bobby emerged to find security personnel escorting a teenage girl toward the exit. She couldn't have been more than 15, her thin frame swimming in an oversized grey hoodie, torn jeans revealing bony knees. Dark smudges beneath her eyes suggested chronic exhaustion. "I need to see the doctor," she insisted, her voice carrying a determination that belied her fragile appearance. "I have the blood type, the rare one, please." The security guard's hand remained firmly on her shoulder. "Miss, you can't just walk in claiming XRH negative with Bombay phenotype," she interrupted. "That's what you're looking for, right, Bobby?" "Froze? Those specific medical terms weren't common knowledge." "How do you know that?" he demanded, stepping forward. The girl's gaze shifted to him, recognition flickering across her features before she masked it. "I heard the nurses talking. They said a kid needs this blood type or he won't make it till morning." Her accent placed her from Southie, Boston's historically working-class neighborhood, worlds away from Bobby's Beacon Hill mansion. Everything about her, from her worn sneakers to her unwashed hair, spoke of a life lived on the margins. "That's confidential. Patient information," Dr. Winters said, approaching the group, "and extremely specific medical terminology." The girl's shoulders squared despite her evident exhaustion. "Test me. I know I have it." "And how exactly would you know your blood type is that rare?" Bobby challenged. "My mom made sure I knew. Said it was important." Something flashed across her face, grief perhaps. "She said I might need to know someday." Dr. Winters exchanged glances with Bobby. The statistical improbability hung in the air. 1 in 7 million, possibly appearing. Precisely when needed. Yet desperation created its own logic. "Let's verify," Dr. Winters finally said. "If nothing else, we can rule it out quickly." The girl was escorted to a testing room, leaving Bobby in the hallway, suspended between skepticism and desperate hope. He'd built his career assessing people's motives, and everything about this situation triggered his suspicion. Yet he found himself pacing the corridor, awaiting results with uncharacteristic anxiety. 40 minutes later, Dr. Winters emerged, her expression transforming the antiseptic hallway into consecrated ground. "It's a match," she said quietly. "Not just compatible, almost identical antigenic structure. I've never seen anything like it." Bobby steadied himself against the wall. "What are the odds?" "Mathematically, nearly impossible." Dr. Winters glanced toward the room where the girl waited. "We need to move quickly. She's consented to donate." As medical staff prepared for the procedure, Bobby found himself drawn to the donation room. The girl sat on the edge of a medical bed, her sleeve rolled up as a nurse located a vein. "What's your name?" Bobby asked. She hesitated, then answered simply, "Lily. Lily Adams." The name struck Bobby with unexpected force. Adams. A decade and a half ago there had been a Sarah Adams, a temporary administrative assistant in the Boston office. Their brief relationship had ended when she disappeared after being let go during company restructuring. He'd barely thought of her since. "How old are you, Lily?" Her eyes, hazel with flecks of amber, unnervingly familiar, met his. 15. The math was undeniable. The timing aligned perfectly. But before Bobby could pursue this line of questioning, the medical team arrived to begin the transfusion process. "Thank you," he said inadequately, as they wheeled her away. Lily's response floated back to him, weighted with meaning he couldn't yet decipher. "I'm not doing it for you." Chapter 2. Blood Revelation. While Lily's blood flowed through medical tubing toward Ethan's failing body, Bobby Mitchell stood frozen in the hospital corridor, his mind racing to connect impossible dots. The timing, the rare blood type, those hazel eyes with distinctive amber flecks. Features he saw every morning in his bathroom mirror. Pieces of a puzzle he never knew existed were falling into horrifying place. He pulled his phone from his pocket, fingers trembling, as he texted his personal attorney. "Need urgent background check. Lily Adams, approximately 15 years old, Boston area. Mother, possibly Sarah Adams. Priority maximum." Bobby paced the sterile hallway, his Italian leather shoes squeaking against the polished floor. The hospital continued its relentless rhythm around him. Nurses checking vitals, doctors consulting charts, families huddled in worried clusters. His empire of skyscrapers and offshore accounts seemed absurdly distant, like artifacts from someone else's life. His phone vibrated just as Dr. Winters approached with an update on Ethan. "The transfusion is proceeding well," she reported. "His vitals are already showing improvement. It's still early, but I'm cautiously optimistic." Relief cascaded through Bobby's body. "And the girl? Lily?" "She's doing fine. The donation process is nearly complete." Bobby nodded, then glanced at his phone. His attorney had sent preliminary information with remarkable speed. Lily Adams, DOB 5/14/2009. Mother, Sarah Adams, deceased 2018. No father listed on birth certificate. Current status, ward of state. Multiple foster placements classified as chronic runaway. Last official residence, Horizon Youth Shelter, South Boston. The timestamp of Lily's birth aligned perfectly with Sarah's disappearance from Mitchell Enterprises. Bobby leaned against the wall, legs suddenly unsteady beneath him. The implications crashed over him in waves. The daughter he never knew existed had just saved the son who'd never had a sister. When Bobby finally gathered himself enough to inquire about Lily's whereabouts, a nurse informed him that she had already left, slipping away during a shift change without waiting for recovery protocol or the promised meal voucher. "She can't have gone far," the nurse added. "She shouldn't even be walking after donating that much blood." But Bobby knew better. Street kids developed different resilience. If Lily didn't want to be found, institutional protocols wouldn't stop her. He returned to Ethan's room, where machines registered the first promising signs of recovery. His son's complexion had improved slightly, the grey pallor giving way to something closer to life. Bobby sank into the visitor's chair, his body suddenly acknowledging 48 hours without sleep. As dawn broke over Boston Harbor, sending shafts of golden light through the hospital windows, Bobby Mitchell made two silent promises: to be the father Ethan deserved if given a second chance, and to find the daughter he never knew he had. When Bobby finally returned to his Beacon Hill mansion 3 days later, Ethan was stable and improving. The Mitchell household staff, accustomed to their employer's prolonged absences, seemed unsettled by his subdued demeanor. Bobby barely noticed their concerned glances as he locked himself in his home office. He spread the contents of a thick, manila envelope across his desk, all the information his investigative team had assembled about Sarah and Lily Adams. The narrative that emerged was painfully clear. Sarah had been fired during a company-wide restructuring while pregnant with his child. She had never informed him, instead raising Lily alone in increasingly difficult circumstances. School records showed Lily as bright but troubled, frequent absences, disciplinary issues, notes about inappropriate clothing for winter weather. Medical records were sporadic. Emergency room visits for untreated infections, malnutrition during periods of homelessness after Sarah's diagnosis with aggressive cancer. After Sarah's passing when Lily was 9, the girl had bounced between foster homes and state facilities, running away with increasing frequency and duration. Her last documented location was indeed the Horizon Youth Shelter, though she hadn't slept there in over 3 months, according to staff. What struck Bobby most profoundly were the social worker notes describing Lily's artistic talents. Multiple reports mentioned her constant drawing, on paper when available, on walls and sidewalks when not. One particularly detailed assessment included a social worker's observation. Subject creates complex drawings depicting isolation themes. When asked about recurring motif of solitary child figure, subject stated, "That's just how things are when nobody wants you." Bobby stared at a photocopy of Lily's 6th grade school portrait, the last official photograph before she began disappearing from the system. Even then, the resemblance was unmistakable. The same high cheekbones, determined jaw, and penetrating gaze that had made Bobby Mitchell recognizable throughout Boston's business community. He reached for his phone, then hesitated. What exactly was he planning to do? His connections could mobilize private investigators, security firms, even sympathetic police officers. But something told him that conventional methods wouldn't work with Lily. She had survived by becoming invisible to exactly those types of authority figures. Instead, Bobby found himself doing something unprecedented. He changed into jeans and a nondescript sweater, grabbed a worn baseball cap from Ethan's room, and drove himself to South Boston in an inconspicuous car from his collection. The Horizon Youth Shelter occupied a converted school building near Andrew Square. Its brick facade was weathered but clean, with security gates covering ground floor windows. A hand-painted sign proclaimed, "Safe space for youth in crisis." The young woman staffing the front desk barely glanced up when Bobby entered. Intake. Hours are 4 to 8 p.m. If you need immediate assistance. "I'm looking for information about Lily Adams," Bobby interrupted, keeping his voice deliberately gentle. The woman's expression immediately closed. "We don't provide information about our residents." "She saved my son's life," Bobby said simply. "I'd like to thank her." Something in his sincerity must have registered because the woman's defensive posture softened slightly. "Lily doesn't stay here anymore. Checks in occasionally for meals or showers, but she doesn't trust the system. None of them do after a while." "Do you know where I might find her?" The woman hesitated. "Look, I shouldn't tell you this, but Lily sometimes hangs around the community center on East 8th. They have an art program she likes. The volunteers let her use supplies even outside regular hours." "Thank you," Bobby said, sliding a business card across the counter. "If she comes back, would you let me know or give her this?" The woman glanced at the card, her eyes widening slightly at the Mitchell Enterprises logo. "You're just a father trying to make things right," Bobby said, turning to leave. The South Boston Community Center was a 15-minute walk from the shelter. Unlike the gleaming recreational facilities in Bobby's neighborhood, this one showed its municipal budget constraints: peeling paint, outdated equipment, fluorescent lights flickering in the hallway. Yet the place hummed with genuine activity: elderly residents playing cards, teenagers shooting hoops in the gym, children's voices echoing from a daycare room. In the art room, Bobby found a gray-haired volunteer organizing supplies while a handful of people worked quietly at tables. No sign of Lily. "Excuse me," he approached the volunteer. "I'm looking for a girl named Lily Adams. I was told she sometimes comes here to draw." The woman studied him with the wariness of someone who protected vulnerable people. "Are you family?" The question hit Bobby with unexpected force. "Yes," he finally answered. "I believe I'm her father." Something in his tone must have convinced her. The volunteer's expression softened as she opened a storage cabinet. "Lily hasn't been in for a couple of weeks, but she leaves her work here sometimes." She retrieved a portfolio folder. "These are hers. She has real talent." Bobby's hands trembled slightly as he opened the folder. Inside were dozens of drawings, some on proper art paper, others on napkins, paper bags, whatever surfaces were available. The technical skill was impressive for a self-taught teenager, but it was the content that stole Bobby's breath. Lily's artwork documented a life of hardship with unflinching honesty. A young girl sleeping on a bench, her small body curled against the cold. The same girl watching through a window as families gathered for meals she wasn't invited to share. A woman in a hospital bed holding a child's hand. Empty chairs at empty tables. Open doors leading nowhere. One drawing in particular arrested Bobby's attention. A teenage boy playing lacrosse while a man in a business suit stood in the distance, looking at his phone instead of the game. Though the figures were stylized, the resemblance to himself and Ethan was unmistakable. The caption scrawled at the bottom read, "The lucky ones don't even know." "How did she know about my son?" Bobby whispered. The volunteer looked confused. "I couldn't say. She never talks much about her life." Bobby carefully returned the drawings to the folder. "May I leave a note for her?" The woman provided paper and pen. Bobby stared at the blank page, corporate communicator suddenly wordless. What could he possibly say to a daughter he'd never known, whose existence he'd discovered only through her desperate act of generosity? Finally, he wrote simply, "Ethan is recovering because of you. I'd like to thank you properly. Please call me." He added his personal cell number, a contact shared with fewer than 20 people worldwide, and signed it, Robert Mitchell. As Bobby placed the note in the folder, the volunteer said quietly, "If you're really her father, you should know she's been on her own too long. Trust doesn't come easy for kids like Lily." Bobby nodded, understanding the gentle warning. "I know I have a lot to make up for. You might start by checking the wall across from St. Augustine's chapel," the woman suggested. "There's a mural there. People say Lily works on it late at night." That evening, as sunset painted Boston's skyline in amber and gold, Bobby Mitchell stood before a sprawling mural on a brick wall in South Boston. The artwork depicted children in various states of loneliness and hope, some reaching toward adults who weren't looking, others building elaborate structures from discarded materials, all with expressions that conveyed both resilience and longing. In C. The corner, a small signature confirmed what Bobby already knew. Lily A. He traced the signature with his fingertip, connecting to his unknown daughter through layers of paint and years of absence. Something fierce and protective awoke in him, a feeling both familiar from his early days with Ethan and entirely new in its intensity. "I'll find you," he promised the signature, "and this time I'll be looking." Chapter 3. Searching Shadows. For the next week, Bobby Mitchell lived a double life. By day, he maintained his corporate persona, directing Mitchell Enterprises from Ethan's hospital room, laptop balanced on his knees as he took video calls with board members and investors. By night, he exchanged his tailored suits for inconspicuous clothing and scoured South Boston streets for any trace of Lily. The search revealed a shadow world existing alongside Bobby's privileged reality, a parallel Boston where people slept, in doorways where community centers served as surrogate homes, where teenagers aged beyond their years crafted survival strategies invisible to those who never needed them. Each night ended the same way. Bobby standing before Lily's mural, studying, newly added details that appeared with mysterious regularity. The artwork evolved daily, new faces, elaborated backgrounds, weather changes reflected in puddles and shadows. Lily was clearly returning to work on it, but always managed to disappear before Bobby could find her. On the 8th day, Ethan was strong enough to sit up and hold a conversation. His recovery had progressed from miraculous to merely remarkable, though he remained weak and tired easily. Bobby sat beside the hospital bed, uncharacteristically present without distraction. "Dad, who was she?" Ethan asked suddenly. "The doctors. Said someone with super rare blood saved me, but nobody will tell me who." Bobby hesitated, unsure how to explain a truth he himself was still processing. "Her name is Lily," he finally said. "She's 15. "Did you pay her? Like, was it some special donor program?" "No," Bobby said carefully. "She came to the hospital on her own when she heard about your condition." Ethan's brow furrowed in confusion. "But how would some random girl know about my blood type?" "The fee." Question hung in the air, demanding an answer Bobby wasn't prepared to give. He was saved by Dr. Winters entering with Ethan's latest test results. Bobby stepped into the hallway to give them privacy and found himself facing the hospital chapel, a small interfaith space he'd passed countless times without notice. Something pulled him inside. The room was empty, its silence a stark contrast to the beeping monitors and squeaking shoes of the hospital corridors. Bobby sank into a back pew, not praying so much as confronting the weight of his choices. A text message interrupted his reflection. "Mr. Mitchell, Lily came by the shelter this morning for a shower. Left before I could speak to her, but took your card. Thought you should know. Angela, Horizon Youth Shelter." Bobby's pulse quickened. She had his number now. Would she use it? Or was taking the card merely curiosity about the man whose son she'd saved? He was still contemplating this when his phone rang with an unknown number. Bobby answered immediately. Mitchell. Silence on the other end, then a young female voice. "Is he okay?" "The boy? Lily?" Bobby's voice softened instinctively. "Yes, Ethan's recovering well, because of you." More silence, as if she was weighing whether to continue the conversation. "Good, that's good. Lily, I'd like to meet with you, to thank you properly." "Not necessary. Please," Bobby said, the word foreign on his tongue. Robert Mitchell didn't say please in business negotiations. Just a conversation, anywhere you feel comfortable. The pause stretched so long, Bobby thought, she might have hung up. "The public garden," she finally said. "By the duck statues, 30 minutes. The line went dead before Bobby could respond. Boston's public garden was a deliberate choice, Bobby realized as he approached their meeting spot. Public, open, with multiple exit routes, strategic for someone accustomed to quick escapes. The famous Make Way for Ducklings bronze sculptures were crowded with tourists taking photos, providing both witnesses and cover. He spotted her immediately. Despite the crowds, a thin figure in the same oversized hoodie, perched on a bench with the watchful stillness of someone accustomed to observing before being observed. Up close, the resemblance was even more striking than in her school photograph. Lily had his eyes, his cheekbones, his analytical gaze. Bobby approached slowly, hands visible at his sides in an unconscious gesture of non-threat. "Thank you for coming." Lily shrugged, eyes tracking his movement with practiced wariness. "What do you want?" The directness was refreshing after years of corporate doublespeak. Bobby sat on the opposite end of the bench, giving her space. "To thank you for saving my son's life," he said, "and to ask how you knew about his condition, about your blood type matching his." Lily's jaw tightened in a gesture so familiar it was like watching himself in a mirror. "Mum told me I had rare blood, said it might be important someday. Your mother was Sarah Adams." A flicker of pain crossed her face. "You knew her?" "Yes." Bobby chose his words carefully. "She worked for my company briefly, 15 years ago." "Before?" "She got fired when she was pregnant," Lily said flatly. "Yeah, I know that part." The accusation hung between them, justified and damning. Bobby didn't deny it. "I didn't know she was pregnant when the layoffs happened. I never knew about you, Lily." Her expression remained skeptical. "Convenient. But not unbelievable," Bobby countered gently. "Sarah never told me. That was her choice, and I have to respect it even if I don't understand it. She said my father was someone important who wouldn't want his life complicated by us. Lily's fingers picked at a loose thread on her jeans. Guess she was right. I would have wanted to know, Bobby said, surprised by how deeply he meant it. About you. Lily's gaze finally met his directly, her eyes challenging. Why? So you could send child support checks, get your assistant to buy birthday presents. The accuracy of her assessment stung. Before Ethan's collapse, would Bobby have done more than financial obligation? He couldn't honestly say. I don't know what kind. Father I would have been then, he admitted, but I'd like the chance to find out what kind I could be now. Lily stood abruptly. I didn't come for some tearful reunion. I just wanted to make sure the kid was okay. His name is Ethan, Bobby said. He's asking about you. Something flickered across Lily's face. Curiosity, perhaps. What did you tell him? That you saved his life. I haven't told him the rest yet. I thought you should have a say in that. The concept of having agency in the situation seemed to surprise her. Lily crossed her arms, studying Bobby with the shrewd assessment of someone who'd learned to read people's motives for survival. I've got to go, she said finally. Lily, wait. Bobby reached into his pocket and withdrew an envelope. At least take this, for emergencies. She eyed the envelope suspiciously. What is it? Cash and a prepaid phone. My number is programmed in it. If you need anything at all, call me. Lily hesitated, then took the envelope with reluctant fingers. This doesn't mean anything. I understand. She turned to leave, then paused. Your son, Ethan, what's he like? The question caught Bobby off guard. He's smart, good at lacrosse, quiet sometimes like he's thinking things through, stubborn when he believes in something. Bobby smiled faintly. Actually, he's a lot like you in some ways. Lily absorbed this with an unreadable expression. Tell him thanks for the blood, I wasn't using it anyway. With that, she disappeared into the crowd, leaving Bobby on the bench with the disorienting sensation of having glimpsed a life that should have intersected with his own, but had run parallel instead. That evening, Bobby sat beside Ethan's hospital bed watching his son push hospital food around his plate with disinterest. Dad, you're being weird, Ethan said suddenly. You've hardly looked at your phone all day. Bobby realized with a start that his usual digital tether had indeed been largely ignored. I've been thinking. About what? About what matters. Bobby set his phone down deliberately. Ethan, there's something I need to tell you about the person who donated blood for your transfusion. Ethan set his fork down, sensing the gravity in his father's tone. Okay. Her name is Lily Adams. She's 15 years old. Bobby took a deep breath. And she's your half-sister. Ethan's expression cycled through confusion, disbelief, and shock. What? How? I had a brief relationship with her mother many years ago, before I met your mom. I didn't know about Lily until she showed up at the hospital. So I have a sister, a real sister. Ethan's voice held wonder rather than judgment. Where has she been all this time? Why haven't we? Her mother raised her alone, Bobby said. The simplified truth easier than the complex reality. She's had a difficult life, especially since her mother passed a few years ago. Is she coming to live with us? Ethan asked, the question revealing his straightforward teenage logic. Bobby smiled sadly. It's complicated, Ethan. Lily has been on her own for a long time. She doesn't trust easily. But she's family, Ethan insisted, with the uncomplicated certainty of someone who'd never questioned his place in the world. And she saved my life. We have to help her. We'll try, Bobby promised, but on her terms, not ours. Later that night, as Ethan slept, Bobby received a text from the prepaid phone he'd given Lily. The mural got vandalized, not the first time. Nothing lasts on these streets. Bobby texted back immediately, I'm sorry, can I help? The response came minutes later. Just wanted someone to know it existed, that it mattered. Forget it. Bobby stared at the message, understanding the deeper meaning. Lily wasn't just talking about the mural. She was talking about herself, the girl who'd become invisible to everyone who should have protected her. I'd like to see it, he wrote. The damage, I mean. Maybe it can be repaired. When no response came, Bobby grabbed his jacket and headed for South Boston. The night was cool, a light rain slicking the streets with reflective sheen. The mural wall appeared abandoned when he arrived, but instinct told him Lily was nearby watching. The damage was extensive, spray paint obscuring faces, crude symbols defacing the careful artwork. Bobby studied it silently, anger building at the senseless destruction of something beautiful. "This is what happens," Lily's voice came from the shadows. "You make something, people wreck it. That's how it goes." She stepped into the dim streetlight, hands shoved into her hoodie pockets. Her expression was carefully blank, but the set of her shoulders betrayed her devastation. "Not always," Bobby said quietly. "Some things can be restored. What's the point? They'll just wreck it again. Then you rebuild. Again." Bobby turned, to face her fully. "Until they realize you're not going away." Lily studied him with that penetrating gaze that mirrored his own. "Is that your business strategy? Outlast the opposition?" "Something like that," Bobby gestured to the wall. "We could have it professionally restored. I know people—" "No," Lily's response was immediate. "I'll fix it myself. That's how it works." Bobby nodded, understanding her need for agency. "At least let me help with supplies. Quality paint, sealant that might prevent future damage." Lily considered this compromise. "I'm not moving into your mansion, if that's where this is going." 1. "Step at a time," Bobby said. "Right now I'm just offering paint." A ghost of a smile touched Lily's lips, the first Bobby had seen. "I could use some cadmium red, it's expensive." "Consider it done." They stood in companionable silence, studying the damaged mural. Behind the vandalism, Bobby could still see the core of the artwork. Children reaching toward connection, building families from imagination when reality failed them. "Ethan knows about you," Bobby said finally. "That you're his sister. He wants to meet you." Lily's posture stiffened. "What did he say?" "That you're family, that he wants to help you." "He doesn't even know me." "He knows you saved his life when you had absolutely no reason to do so." Bobby turned to face her. "That tells him everything important about who you are." For the first time, Lily's carefully maintained composure cracked slightly. "I should go." "Think about meeting him," Bobby said gently. "On your terms, when you're ready." Lily backed away, melting into the shadows with practiced ease. Her voice floated back, vulnerable in its sincerity. "I'm not ready for a family. I don't know how those work." "Neither do I," Bobby admitted to the darkness, "but I'm willing to learn if you are." Chapter 4. Fractured Canvases. 2 weeks after Ethan's discharge from the hospital, life at the Mitchell mansion settled into an uneasy new rhythm. Bobby worked from home for the first time in his career, converting a rarely used sitting room into a temporary office that allowed him to check on Ethan between meetings. The staff exchanged bewildered glances at their employer's unprecedented presence, while Ethan himself seemed both pleased and disoriented by his father's constant attention. "Dad, you don't have to hover," Ethan protested one afternoon, looking up from his homework. "Dr. Winters said I'm recovering faster than expected." Bobby set down the protein smoothie he'd brought, another first in their relationship. "I'm not hovering, I'm being appropriately concerned." Ethan rolled his eyes with teenage eloquence. "You literally installed a medical alert system in my bathroom. That's the definition of hovering. That's the definition of prudent precaution," Bobby countered, though he couldn't suppress a smile at his son's improving spirit. The boy's color had returned, along with his appetite and energy. Only occasional fatigue and strict medication. Protocols remained as reminders of his brush with disaster. "Have you heard from her?" Ethan asked, abruptly changing the subject. "From Lily." The question had become a daily occurrence. Bobby sighed. "Not since I delivered the art supplies to the shelter last week. The staff said she picked them up, but she didn't leave a message." "Maybe we should go look for her again." "She knows how to reach us, Ethan. We have to respect her space." "But she's my sister," Ethan insisted with the direct logic that occasionally made Bobby envious of youth's simplicity. "And she's all alone out there." Lily has survived on EC. Her own for a long time, she's remarkably resourceful. Bobby sat on the edge of Ethan's bed. Trust me, I want to bring her home as much as you do, but pushing too hard might drive her further away. Ethan frowned, clearly dissatisfied with this approach. Can I at least write her a letter or something? They could give it to her at the shelter. Bobby considered this. That's not a bad idea, actually. What would you say? I don't know. Thank her for saving my life. Tell her what it's like having a sister after being an only child forever. Ask about her art, maybe. Ethan shrugged suddenly. Self-conscious. Normal stuff. Normal stuff. The phrase highlighted how abnormal their situation truly was. Two siblings separated by circumstance, trying to bridge a 15-year gap with normal stuff. Write your letter, Bobby encouraged. I'll make sure she gets it. That evening, Bobby delivered Ethan's carefully composed note to the Horizon Youth Shelter. Angela, the staff member he'd met previously, promised to give it to Lily when she next appeared. She's been coming in more regularly, Angela offered. Using the shower facilities, getting hot meals, that's progress. Has she mentioned anything about us? Bobby couldn't help asking. Angela shook her head. Lily doesn't share much, but she's been working on some new pieces. She hesitated, then added, different from her usual style. Landscapes, homes, places with people in them, not just empty spaces. The observation stayed with Bobby as he drove home through Boston's evening traffic. His phone rang through the car's speaker system, his executive assistant, whose calls he'd been increasingly redirecting to Mitchell Enterprises' interim leadership team. Mitchell, he answered. Sir, the Shanghai acquisition team is requesting an emergency conference. The Chinese partners are threatening to pull out unless you personally intervene. 6 weeks ago, this call would have sent Bobby immediately to his office for an all-night negotiation session. Now he felt a surprising detachment. Tell James to handle it. He knows my parameters. But sir, they specifically asked for you. Millions in potential revenue could be lost. Then we lose it, Bobby interrupted, surprising himself with the decisiveness of his response. Some things are more important. He ended the call, momentarily startled by his own shifted priorities. The Bobby Mitchell of 2 months ago would have sacrificed anything, sleep, personal time, family obligations, to secure a deal of that magnitude. Now the prospect of missing even one evening at home with Ethan seemed unthinkable. As he pulled into the driveway of his Beacon Hill mansion, Bobby noticed a figure sitting on the stone wall that bordered the property. His heartbeat quickened as he recognized the now familiar grey hoodie, Lily. He parked carefully, moving with deliberate casualness as he approached her. She remained perched on the wall, a sketchbook balanced on her knees, pencil moving in quick, precise strokes across the page. Quite a place, she said without looking up. Does it have a moat? Bobby smiled at the sarcasm. Just a security system that you somehow managed to avoid triggering. Lily shrugged. I climbed over where the oak branches hang low. Your sensors need adjustment. The casual revelation of her reconnaissance and infiltration skills should have been concerning. Instead, Bobby felt a peculiar pride in her resourcefulness. I'm glad you came, he said simply. Lily finally met his gaze. Got tired of you guys stalking my usual spots. Figured I'd check out your territory instead. Ethan will be thrilled. He's been asking about you constantly. I got his letter. Lily's expression softened slightly. It was nice, kind of weird, but nice. Would you like to meet him? He's inside. Lily closed her sketchbook, hugging it against her chest like armor. I'm not staying, just curious what a $50 million house looks like. It wasn't quite that expensive, Bobby said mildly, but I'm happy to give you a tour if you'd like. The casual offer seemed to disarm her. Lily hesitated, then nodded once, sliding off the wall with feline grace. As they approached the front entrance, the mansion's imposing facade reflected in Lily's wide eyes. Bobby saw his home anew through her perspective. The ostentatious grandeur, the unnecessary space, the statement of wealth it deliberately made. Your apartment could fit in our entryway. Ethan's voice came from the doorway, where he stood, leaning slightly against the frame for support. Lily froze, her body tensing like a wild animal considering flight. I don't have an apartment. Oh. Ethan looked momentarily flustered. Sorry, I just meant... It's fine, Lily cut him off, studying him with careful attention. You look better than the last time I saw you. You saw me before? When you were unconscious, in the hospital. An awkward silence fell between the siblings, one raised in privilege, the other in hardship, connected by blood yet separated by everything else. Thank you, Ethan said finally, for saving my life. Lily shrugged, uncomfortable with gratitude. It was just blood. It was everything, Ethan countered with quiet intensity. I'd be gone without you. The raw honesty seemed to penetrate Lily's defenses slightly. She nodded, accepting his thanks without further deflection. Dad said you're an artist, Ethan continued, gesturing to her sketchbook. Can I see? Lily clutched the book tighter. I don't usually show people. I understand, Ethan said, though disappointment flickered across his face. Something in his expression must have reached her because Lily sighed, then tentatively opened her sketchbook to a landscape drawing, the Boston skyline viewed from some elevated vantage point, rendered with remarkable technical skill. This is amazing, Ethan said, genuine admiration in his voice. You're seriously talented. Lily's shoulders relaxed fractionally at his praise. It's just something I do. Would you like to come in? Bobby asked gently. Maybe have dinner with us. The invitation hung in the air, weighted with implications beyond a simple meal. Lily glanced from Bobby to Ethan, then back to the street, beyond the property's gates. I should go, she said, taking a step backward. Please stay, Ethan said quickly, just for a little while. You don't even have to eat with us if you don't want to. Lily hesitated, caught between ingrained wariness and visible curiosity. I guess I could see inside, for a few minutes. Bobby carefully masked his triumph as he led them into the house. Lily moved through the Mitchell mansion with the cautious steps of someone navigating a museum after hours, touching nothing, observing everything. Her eyes catalogued the artwork, the furnishings, the casual displays of wealth that the Mitchells had long since ceased to notice. In the kitchen, Mrs. Henderson, the Mitchells' longtime housekeeper, was preparing dinner. She glanced up in surprise at Lily's appearance, but with the discretion of long service offered only a polite nod. We're having pasta carbonara, Ethan informed Lily. Mrs. Henderson makes the best in Boston. I'm not hungry, Lily said automatically. Mrs. Henderson's eyebrow arched slightly. There's always plenty, miss. No obligation to eat, but you're welcome to change your mind. Something in the older woman's matter-of-fact tone seemed to ease Lily's tension. She nodded acknowledgement before continuing her examination of the kitchen, the professional-grade appliances, the copper pots hanging overhead, the bowl of fresh fruit that cost more than many of her shelter meals. This is like a restaurant, she observed. Dad never cooks, Ethan explained. I don't think he knows how the stove works. I can make coffee, Bobby defended himself with a smile. And toast. Wow, impressive life skills for a billionaire, Lily said, the sarcasm failing. To mask her genuine amazement at the surroundings. Would you like to see the rest of the house? Ethan asked eagerly. I could show you my room or the media room. We have every gaming system ever made. Lily's gaze flickered toward the exit, her instinct for escape visibly warring with curiosity. Maybe just a quick tour. Bobby watched as Ethan led Lily through the mansion, pointing out features with the enthusiasm of a boy who rarely had peers visit. Lily maintained her guard, but occasionally her composure slipped to reveal genuine wonderment, particularly in the library with its floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, and again in the solarium, where tropical plants created an indoor garden. They ended in Ethan's bedroom suite, where sports trophies and gaming equipment created the typical organized chaos of teenage existence. Lily paused before a wall of photographs, Ethan at various ages, mostly in athletic uniforms or at school events. You've had a good life, she observed without accusation, just stating fact. Ethan shifted uncomfortably. Yeah, I guess I have. Must be nice. It's the only one I've known. Ethan hesitated, then added, until I got sick. That changed everything. Lily's expression softened slightly. Getting sick sucks. Yeah, Ethan sat on the edge of his bed. "But it also made me meet you. So maybe it wasn't all bad." The simple statement hung in the air between them. Lily studied her half-brother with newfound intensity, as if reassessing him entirely. "You're not what I expected," she finally said. "What did you expect?" "I don't know, someone spoiled, entitled," Lily shrugged. "Someone who wouldn't want a street kid for a sister." "Well, you're not what I expected either," Ethan countered. "I always wanted a sibling, but I figured they'd be like a baby, not someone who could already save my life." A tentative smile touched Lily's lips. "Yeah, that was pretty awesome timing on my part." The joke, her first, broke something in the atmosphere. Ethan grinned, and for a moment the genetic connection between them was startlingly apparent in the identical curve of their smiles. "Dinner's ready," Bobby announced from the doorway, having watched their interaction with careful distance. "No pressure, Lily, but you're welcome to join us." To his surprise, Lily nodded. "I could eat, I guess." Dinner proceeded with surprising ease. Lily initially approached the elaborate table setting with visible trepidation, watching Ethan for cues on which fork to use. But as conversation flowed, her self-consciousness gradually faded. She even accepted seconds when Mrs. Henderson offered, a small victory that Bobby noted with quiet satisfaction. "So," Ethan said between bites, "will you come back tomorrow? I have a bunch of movies we could watch, or we could just hang out." Lily froze momentarily. "I don't do plans." "Why not?" Ethan pressed. "Because plans mean people expect things. People expecting things means disappointment." Lily set down her fork. "That's how it works." "It doesn't have to," Bobby interjected gently. Lily's gaze shifted to him, sharp and assessing. "Says the guy who didn't know I existed for 15 years. The accusation landed with precision. Bobby nodded, accepting it. "You're right. I've made mistakes, enormous ones, but I'm trying to do better now." "Why? Because almost losing your real kid made you sentimental?" "Because almost losing Ethan made me reevaluate everything," Bobby corrected, "including what it means to be a father, to both of my children." Lily's expression closed. "I'm not your child. I'm just someone with matching blood." "You're more than that," Ethan interrupted. "You're my sister, whether you like it or not." The blunt statement hung in the air. Lily stared at Ethan, something vulnerable flickering across her face before her walls reassembled. "I should go," she stood abruptly. "It's getting late." "Stay," Bobby said, the word somewhere between request and plea. "We have plenty of room." "You could have your own space." Lily shook her head. "I don't belong here." "You could," Ethan said quietly, "if you wanted to." For a moment, Lily seemed to waver. Bobby held his breath, hoping. Then her expression hardened with resolve. "Thanks for dinner," she said formally, backing toward the exit. "I'll find my own way out." Neither Mitchell moved to stop her as she left. After the front door closed, Ethan turned to his father with disappointment etched across his features. "We should have made her stay." "We can't make her do anything, Ethan. That's not how trust works," Bobby sighed. "She'll come back when she's ready." "How do you know?" "Because she came today." Bobby smiled faintly. "That's already more than I expected." Later that night, checking security footage before bed, a new habit since Ethan's illness, Bobby noticed movement on the property's perimeter. The camera revealed Lily sitting on the same stone wall, sketchbook open, drawing the Mitchell mansion in the moonlight. Bobby watched the feed for several minutes, resisting the urge to go outside and potentially frighten her away. Eventually, Lily closed her sketchbook and disappeared into the darkness beyond the property's edge. But she had come back, if only to capture the image of a place where she might someday belong. Chapter 5. Broken Barriers. The delicate dance of connection between the Mitchells and Lily developed its own uncertain rhythm over the following weeks. She appeared at unpredictable intervals, sometimes at the mansion's perimeter, sometimes at Ethan's school when classes let out, occasionally in the solarium where she'd sketch for hours in silence before disappearing again. Each visit lasted longer than the previous one. First minutes, then hours. She began accepting meals, though she never stayed overnight despite repeated invitations. Bobby instructed the staff to maintain a casual attitude toward her appearances, treating her neither as guest nor intruder, but as someone who belonged, whether she acknowledged it or not. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, Ethan found Lily in the Thai mansion's rarely used art studio, a light-filled space his mother had designed before her departure from their lives years earlier. Lily stood before a blank canvas, surrounded by untouched professional-grade supplies that had gathered dust since the divorce. "Dad had this room built for my mom," Ethan explained from the doorway. "She used to paint. Not as good as you, though." Lily's fingers hovered over brushes arranged by size and type. "These are serious materials. They're yours if you want them." Ethan leaned against the doorframe, still occasionally needing support during extended periods of standing. "Nobody else uses this room." Lily selected a brush, testing its weight and balance with practiced fingers. "What happened to your mom? Nobody ever mentions her." The direct question caught Ethan off guard. He shifted uncomfortably. "She left when I was 9. Lives in Europe now with her new husband. I see her a couple weeks each summer." "Do you miss her?" "Sometimes." Ethan shrugged with deliberate casualness. "It was hard at first, but you get used to it. Dad tried to be around. More after she left, but work always came first until you almost died," Lily finished matter-of-factly. "Yeah, that changed everything." Ethan studied Lily's profile as she arranged paints on a palette. "What about your mom?" "Dad said she passed away a few years ago." Lily's hand stilled, momentarily. "Cancer. It happened fast, which was better, I guess. The state took me after that. Foster care, group homes, whatever." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It wasn't your fault." Lily dipped the brush into deep blue paint. "Besides, you lost your mom too, just differently." The observation struck Ethan with its simple truth. Different circumstances, similar wounds, another connection between them beyond shared genetics. "Dad's changing, you know," Ethan said after watching her begin to paint. "Since everything happened, since finding you. He's actually present now, not just physically in the room while his mind is at the office." Lily made a non-committal sound, focusing on the canvas where a stormy seascape was emerging with surprising speed. "He wants to make things right with you," Ethan continued. "There's nothing to make right. He didn't know I existed." Lily's brush strokes became more aggressive. "My mother made that choice." "Are you angry at her?" "Sometimes. Mostly I understand." Lily stepped back to assess her work. She was protecting me from disappointment, from expecting things from someone who wouldn't deliver. Dad would have helped if he'd known. He's not perfect, but he wouldn't have abandoned you. Lily turned to face Ethan directly. "You can't know that." "I know him," Ethan insisted. "Better than anyone. You know the version of him that's your father. That doesn't mean you know who he would have been to me." Lily returned to her painting. "Anyway, it doesn't matter now." But it did matter, and Ethan knew it. The past couldn't be changed, but it shaped their present in ways they were only beginning to understand. That evening, Bobby returned home from his first full day at the office since Ethan's illness to find his son and Lily engaged in an intensely competitive video game battle in the media room. The sight stopped him in the doorway. The casual sibling rivalry, the comfortable proximity. Lily's guard momentarily lowered in the heat of competition. "No fair! You can't use that combo move twice in a row," Ethan protested as his character was decisively defeated. "All's fair in war and video games," Lily countered with a rare grin. "Besides, if you'd block properly, it wouldn't matter. When did you get so good at this anyway?" "Community center had an old console. I got a lot of practice." Lily set down the controller, her smile fading as she noticed Bobby's presence. "Hey!" "Don't stop on my account," Bobby said, leaning against the doorframe. "It's good to see Ethan getting beaten at something. Builds character." "She's freakishly good," Ethan complained good-naturedly. "Like, professional level. Good?" "Natural talent," Lily said with a shrug, her body language shifting back toward its usual guardedness in Bobby's presence. "Have you eaten?" Bobby asked, deliberately casual. "Mrs. Henderson left dinner in the warming oven." We ordered pizza, Ethan admitted. Hope that's okay. Of course. Bobby noted the empty pizza box and soda cans on the coffee table, evidence of normal teenage behavior that he found unexpectedly heartwarming. I'll join you for the next round if there's room for a third player. Ethan's eyes widened in surprise. You want to play? You never play. I'm branching out, Bobby said with a smile. Fair warning, though, I'll be terrible. That's okay. Lily can give you handicap points like she does for me, Ethan said, making room on the couch. Bobby joined them, accepting a controller with exaggerated caution that made even Lily's lips twitch toward a smile. What followed was an hour of increasingly raucous gameplay, during which Bobby discovered his son's competitive streak matched his own, and Lily revealed a tactical mind that would have served her well in corporate boardrooms. Later, after thoroughly demonstrating her gaming superiority, Lily stood to leave as she always did, when evening deepened toward night. Stay, Ethan said, the request now routine. It's pouring rain out there. I've got places to be, Lily responded, also routine. Bobby set down his controller. At least let me drive you wherever you're going. Not necessary. Lily gathered her backpack, a new one Bobby had left casually in the solarium last week, replacing her tattered one without comment. It's not about necessity, Bobby said quietly. It's about caring what happens to you. The simple statement seemed to catch Lily off guard. She paused, conflicting emotions crossing her face. I'm staying at Horizon tonight, she finally admitted. They hold beds until 9 for regulars. That's halfway across the city, Ethan protested. In this weather, Dad tell her she has to stay. Lily makes her own decisions, Bobby said carefully. But the offer stands, either a ride or a room here. Your choice. For a moment it seemed she might actually accept. Then Lily squared her shoulders with familiar resolve. I'll take the ride, just this once. The drive to South Boston proceeded. In comfortable silence, windshield wipers keeping time against the downpour. Bobby resisted the urge to fill the quiet with questions or persuasion. Instead, he let Lily control the interaction, respecting her boundaries while making his presence available. As they approached the shelter, Lily stared through the rain-streaked window at the institutional building with its security lights and reinforced doors. Thank you, she said suddenly, for the art supplies, the professional ones in the studio. They're really good quality. You're welcome, Bobby replied simply. They should be used by someone with talent. I finished a painting today, the seascape. I left it to dry in the studio. Lily's fingers fidgeted with her backpack strap. Ethan can have it if he wants, for his room or whatever. The offer, her first voluntary gift, felt monumental. He'll be honored, Bobby said, careful to match her casual tone despite the significance of the moment. They pulled up to the shelter entrance, the clock on the dashboard showing 8:47 p.m. Still time to secure a bed for the night. I've been thinking, Lily said, hand on the door handle but making no move to exit. About what you said before, about me having a room at your place. Bobby kept his expression neutral despite his racing pulse. The offer stands. Any time. I'm not saying I'd move in or anything, but maybe sometimes, if it's raining, or if Ethan wants to finish a game tournament. Her words came faster, as if she needed to justify the concession. It would be practical, that's all. Absolutely practical, Bobby agreed, suppressing the urge to push for more. No obligations, no expectations, just a space that's yours when you want it. Lily nodded, seemingly satisfied with this framing. I should go. They lock the doors at 9. Of course. Bobby hesitated, then added, Lily, whatever you decide, whenever you decide it, we're here. She met his gaze briefly, a flicker of vulnerability crossing her features before she masked it. I know. Bobby watched her dash through the rain to the shelter entrance, where she exchanged words with the security guard before disappearing inside. Only then did he allow himself a moment of hope, fragile but real, like the first green shoot after a long winter. The following morning, Bobby entered the mansion's art studio to view Lily's completed painting. The seascape captured a storm breaking over the Atlantic, dark clouds parting to reveal shafts of sunlight piercing through to illuminate turbulent waters. The technical skill was remarkable, but it was the emotional content that took Bobby's breath away. Here was both chaos and promise, devastation and possibility, rendered with unflinching honesty and unexpected hope. In the bottom corner, a small signature, L. Mitchell Adams. Bobby traced the hyphenated surname with trembling fingers, understanding the magnitude of what Lily had tentatively claimed with those simple letters. Not full acceptance, not yet, but acknowledgement of a connection she was no longer entirely rejecting. He was still standing there when his phone rang. Angela from Horizon Youth Shelter. "Mr. Mitchell, I thought you should know. Lily didn't come down for breakfast check-in. When we entered her room, we found her belongings gone. She's not in the building." Bobby's grip tightened on the phone. Running was Lily's default response when vulnerability felt overwhelming. The painting signature suddenly seemed like a goodbye rather than a beginning. "Thank you for letting me know," he managed. "There's something else," Angela continued. "She left an envelope for you at the front desk." Bobby drove to South Boston, immediately mind-racing with possibilities. At the shelter, Angela handed him a sealed envelope addressed simply Mitchell in Lily's distinctive artistic script. Inside was a folded paper containing an address in Dorchester and a time 2 p.m. No explanation, no context, just coordinates, for what felt like a critical juncture in their evolving relationship. The address led to an abandoned community center scheduled for demolition. Construction barriers surrounded the property, warning signs prohibiting entry. Bobby arrived precisely at 2, uncertain what to expect, but determined to meet whatever challenge Lily had set. He found her inside the condemned building, standing before a massive wall mural partially obscured by water damage and decay. The artwork, clearly Lily's style but years old, depicted children in various states of isolation and connection, their expressions ranging from despair to tentative hope. "I made this when I was 12, Lily said without turning, "after Mom, before everything else." Bobby approached carefully, studying the artwork and the young woman before it. "It's extraordinary. They're tearing this place down next week. Nobody cares that this is here, that I was here." Lily's voice held no self-pity, just resignation. "Nothing lasts in my world. It matters that you created it," Bobby said quietly. "Even if the physical piece doesn't survive, what it represents does." Fancy words from someone who owns buildings with his name on them. "Perhaps that's why I understand the desire for permanence." Bobby moved to stand beside her, both of them facing the mural. "Ethan was disappointed you weren't there this morning. He wanted to thank you for the painting." Lily's jaw tightened. "I needed to check on this place. These kids I knew them all. Foster system, group homes, shelter kids. Some got adopted, some aged out, some disappeared. I'm the only one who remembers them now." Bobby recognized the grief beneath her words, not just for the mural or the forgotten children, but for her own impermanence in a world that had rarely acknowledged her existence. "What if we preserved it?" he suggested. "Not just with photographs. We could have the entire wall carefully removed before demolition, professionally restored." Lily turned to him with skepticism. "Why would you do that?" "Because it matters to you. Because these children deserve to be remembered. Because art this powerful shouldn't be lost." Bobby met her gaze directly. "Because you shouldn't have to lose one more thing that's important to you." Something cracked in Lily's carefully maintained composure, a hairline fracture in the walls she'd built around herself. "You can't just fix everything with money." "I'm not trying to fix everything, just this one thing, if you'll let me." Lily stared at him for a long moment, searching his face for hidden motives. Whatever she saw there must have satisfied her, because she nodded once decisively. "If you save this wall," she said carefully, "I'll stay at your house, not forever, but for a while, to see what it's like." The negotiation, so reminiscent of Bobby's own business style, almost made him smile despite the gravity of the moment. "Agreed. And I keep my room at Horizon as backup." "Of course. And no private school, No makeovers, no trying to turn me into something I'm not. I wouldn't dream of it. Bobby held out his hand formally. Do we have a deal, Miss Adams? Lily regarded his outstretched hand with momentary hesitation before grasping it firmly. Deal, Mr. Mitchell. As they shook hands in that abandoned building, surrounded by Lily's earliest artistic testament to survival, Bobby understood they were negotiating something far more significant than living arrangements. They were establishing the tentative framework for a relationship that neither had expected to build, a father and daughter finding their way toward each other across 15 years of absence. Ethan's going to be insufferable about this, Lily muttered as they walked out together. Bobby laughed. Probably he's been rearranging furniture in the room next to his since you left this morning. Apparently it has the best light for an artist. He's weird. He's your brother. The words hung between them, no longer a contested claim but a simple truth they were both beginning to accept. Chapter 6. Canvas of Belonging. Lily moved into the Mitchell mansion on a Wednesday afternoon with possessions that fit into a single backpack and a cardboard portfolio containing her artwork. Bobby had expected the transition to be fraught with tension, but Lily approached the situation with the pragmatic adaptability that had helped her survive 15 years of uncertainty. This is your room, Ethan announced, flinging open the door to a spacious bedroom adjacent to his own. I helped Mrs. Henderson set it up, but you can change anything you don't like. Lily stood in the doorway, taking in the understated luxury of the space, twice the size of any room she'd ever occupied, with tall windows overlooking the garden, a queen-sized bed with crisp linens, and a private bathroom gleaming with marble and chrome. Someone had placed a vase of fresh wildflowers on the desk and installed an easel near the window where natural light would be optimal for painting. It's big, she finally managed. Too big? Bobby asked from behind them, sensitive to her potential discomfort. Lily shook her head slowly. Just different. The closet's empty, Ethan continued enthusiastically. Dad said we could go shopping whenever you want, but no pressure or anything. Lily set her backpack on the pristine bedspread, the worn canvas incongruous against the Egyptian cotton. I don't need much. Of course not, Bobby agreed smoothly. Why don't we let Lily get settled? Dinner's at 7, but the kitchen's always open if you're hungry before then. Ethan seemed reluctant to leave, but allowed Bobby to guide him from the room. At the threshold, Bobby turned back. Lily, this house has a lot of space and a lot of rooms, but this one is yours, exclusively yours. No one enters without your permission. You can lock the door, rearrange the furniture, paint the walls, whatever makes it feel like your space. The concept of exclusive territory, of boundaries others would respect, seemed to surprise her. Okay, thanks. When they were alone in the hallway, Ethan whispered urgently, Dad, she hardly has any stuff. Like, at all. I know, Bobby replied, quietly. We'll address that gradually. The most important thing right now is that she feels secure, not overwhelmed. That evening, Lily appeared for dinner precisely at 7, having showered and changed into her cleanest clothes, still worn but freshly washed. Her damp hair curled around her face, making her look younger than her 15 years. She took the same seat she'd occupied during previous visits, now seemingly assigned to her by unspoken agreement. Conversation flowed more easily than Bobby had dared hope, with Ethan chattering about school and his gradually expanding physical activities. As he recovered, Lily contributed occasional comments or questions, her natural intelligence evident in her observations. When Mrs. Henderson served dessert, homemade apple crisp with vanilla ice cream, Lily's eyes widened at the generous portion. We have this whenever Mrs. H makes it, Ethan explained. It's basically a family tradition. The word family hung in the air, its implications both invitation and pressure. Bobby watched Lily carefully, alert for signs of retreat, but she merely nodded and took a tentative bite of the warm dessert. It's good, she said, surprise coloring her tone as if pleasure itself were an unexpected guest at the table. Later, after Ethan had retreated to his room to complete homework, Bobby found Lily in the solarium, sketching the night-darkened garden beyond the glass walls. May I join you? He asked, respecting the boundary of her chosen solitude. Lily nodded, without looking up from her drawing. Bobby sat in a nearby chair, content with the companionable silence. The scratch of her pencil against paper provided a soothing counterpoint to the occasional distant sounds of the household settling for the night. "Your construction guys started work on the community center wall today," Lily said eventually. "Angela sent me pictures." "The preservation team," Bobby corrected gently. "They're art conservationists, not construction workers. They'll ensure the mural is removed intact and properly restored before installation." "Where will it go afterward?" "That's your decision. It could come here if you'd like. Though the scale might be challenging, there's also the possibility of donating it to a museum or public space where others could appreciate it." Lily's pencil paused mid-stroke. "A museum wouldn't want it." "I think you underestimate the quality of your work," Bobby said, "but as I said, it's entirely your choice." Lily resumed sketching, her strokes more deliberate now. "The kids in that mural deserve to be seen, that's the whole point. Then perhaps a public installation would be appropriate. The new children's wing at Boston General is seeking artwork, as is the juvenile court building downtown." The suggestion sparked something in Lily's expression. "The court building? Where they decide where foster kids go?" "Exactly. That," Lily said decisively, "that's where it should be, so they remember we're real people, not just case numbers." Bobby nodded, understanding the significance of her choice. "I'll make the arrangements." They lapsed into silence again, but it felt different now. A quiet built on nascent trust rather than defensive withdrawal. Bobby watched as Lily's drawing took shape. The solarium's interior reflected in the dark glass, creating a double image where inside and outside overlapped. In the foreground, 3 indistinct figures, 2 seated, 1 standing, existed in both worlds simultaneously. "I used to draw families I saw through windows," Lily said without looking up. "In fancy neighborhoods. I'd sit across the street and sketch them having dinner or watching TV together. Pretend I knew what they were saying to each other." The confession, offered without prompting, felt like a precious gift. Bobby received it with appropriate gravity. "And what were they saying in your imagination?" "Normal stuff." "How was school?" "Pass the potatoes." "Your turn to walk the dog." Lily's pencil continued its steady movement. "Nothing special. That was the point. Just belonging." Bobby's throat tightened. "Belonging doesn't always look the way we expect it to." "No," Lily agreed softly. "It doesn't." The following days established new patterns in the Mitchell household. Ethan returned to school part-time, his medical restrictions gradually lifting as his strength returned. Bobby split his workdays between the office and home, prioritizing family dinners with a consistency that continued to astonish his executive team. Lily, after lengthy discussion and negotiation, enrolled in an alternative education program that combined online learning with studio art classes at a respected community arts center. The arrangement acknowledged both her academic gaps and her exceptional artistic talent, while allowing her the flexibility and independence she required. "How was your first art class?" Bobby asked one evening as they sat in the kitchen. Lily, picking at a post-class snack Mrs. Henderson had prepared. "Different." Lily pushed a grape around her plate. "The teacher asked about my influences and artistic vision. I didn't know what to say." "What did you tell her?" "That I just draw what I see, what needs remembering." Lily frowned. "She said I have a unique perspective informed by lived experience or something." Bobby smiled. "That sounds accurate, if somewhat academic." "She wants me to develop a portfolio for college applications." Lily looked up, challenge in her eyes. "I never planned on college." "Plans can change," Bobby said carefully, "but there's no pressure either way. Your education should follow your interests and talents, whatever form that takes." The measured response seemed to satisfy Lily, who nodded and finally ate the grape she'd been toying with. "Ethan's already mapping out which colleges have the best lacrosse teams," she observed. "He has his whole future planned." "Ethan has had certain advantages and expectations," Bobby acknowledged, "but his path isn't necessarily the right one for everyone." "Because he's your real kid," Lily said, the statement more matter-of-fact than accusatory. Because he's had a different life experience, Bobby corrected gently. You are equally my child, Lily. But I won't pretend that 15 years of absence hasn't affected both of us, or that I can simply step into a paternal role without earning your trust first. Lily studied him with that penetrating gaze that so mirrored his own. You're different from what I expected. What did you expect? Someone colder, more corporate. Lily shrugged. Someone who'd want to fix me, make me fit some perfect daughter image. I'm afraid I'm long past the illusion of perfection, Bobby said with a rueful smile. In myself or anyone else. The conversation might have continued, but Ethan burst into the kitchen, excitement radiating from him. Dad, Coach says I can rejoin practice next week. Limited drills only, but still. The news was significant. Ethan's first step back toward normal teenage activities after months of medical restrictions. Bobby smiled at his son's enthusiasm while watching Lily's reaction from the corner of his eye. She offered Ethan a genuine smile, her pleasure in his happiness evident. That's awesome, she said. Just don't overdo it and end up back in the hospital. I'm not giving any more blood. You got your quota. The teasing comment, her first acknowledgement of their biological connection in casual conversation, made Ethan beam. Deal. Hey, want to come watch practice sometime? The team's been asking about my mysterious sister. Lily tensed slightly. Have the invitation and its implications. I don't do bleachers and school spirit. You don't have to wear the school colors or anything, Ethan persisted. Just come once, please. Bobby prepared to intervene, concerned that Ethan was pushing too hard, but Lily surprised them both. Maybe, if I'm not busy with my own stuff. She stood gathering her snack plate. I've got homework to finish. After she left, Ethan turned to Bobby with a triumphant grin. That was totally a yes. A conditional maybe at best, Bobby cautioned. Don't set yourself up for disappointment if she changes her mind. She won't, Ethan said with surprising certainty. She's curious about my life, same way I'm curious about hers. The observation struck Bobby with its simple insight. Despite their vastly different upbringings, both his children shared a fundamental desire to understand each other, to bridge the gap that circumstance had placed between them. The following week brought a milestone that none of them had explicitly acknowledged, but all had been working toward. As autumn settled over Boston, painting the public garden in russets and golds, Bobby's attorney finalized the paperwork for Lily's legal status. The options had been carefully explained to her, from informal guardianship to full legal adoption, with the clear understanding that the choice was entirely hers. These documents establish me as your legal guardian until you turn 18, Bobby explained as they sat in his home office, the paperwork spread between them. This gives you stability, without changing your identity if that's what you prefer. Your name remains legally Adams, though you can use Mitchell informally if you choose. Lily studied the documents with unreadable expression. What about the other option? The adoption one? That would legally establish you as my daughter, with all the same rights as Ethan, Bobby said carefully. Your birth certificate would be amended to add my name as your father. You could legally change your surname to Mitchell if you wanted. Lily's finger traced the signature line on the guardianship papers. And this is what you prefer. This is entirely your decision, Bobby emphasized. Both options provide the same practical stability. The difference is primarily legal and symbolic. But what do you want? Lily pressed, her gaze direct and challenging. Bobby took a deep breath, aware that his answer mattered profoundly. I want whatever makes you feel secure and respected. I want to be your father in whatever way you'll allow me to be, whether that's as legal guardian or adoptive parent. That's not really an answer. No, it's not, Bobby admitted, because I'm trying very hard not to influence a decision that should be yours alone. But if you're asking me to be completely honest about my own wishes, regardless of what's best for you, he paused, gathering his thoughts. I would be honored to legally adopt you as my daughter, not because it changes who you are or where you came from, but because it formally acknowledges what I already know to be true, that you are my child, and I should have been your father all along. The raw honesty hung between them. Lily's expression remained carefully neutral, but Bobby noticed her hands trembling slightly as she set the guardianship papers aside and pulled the adoption documents closer. "I want to think about it," she said finally. "It's a big step." "Of course," Bobby agreed immediately. "There's no rush. Take all the time you need." Lily nodded, rising from her chair. At the office door, she paused. "Does Ethan know about the options?" "Yes, he knows I'm leaving the choice entirely to you." "And what does he think I should do?" Bobby smiled slightly. "He thinks you should officially become a Mitchell because you basically already are one anyway." His words, not mine. A ghost of a smile touched Lily's lips. "Sounds like him." "Indeed, but again, this is your decision, not his or mine." Lily nodded and left, closing the door quietly behind her. Bobby remained at his desk, staring at the two sets of documents. That represented such fundamentally different futures. The responsible choice would be to hope for the guardianship option, less complicated legally, less demanding emotionally for all concerned. But in the privacy of his thoughts, Bobby acknowledged his deeper wish that Lily would choose to become a Mitchell, not just in practice, but in name. That evening, dinner proceeded normally, with no mention of the paperwork or pending decision. Afterward, Ethan retreated to his room for a video call with his lacrosse teammates, while Bobby settled in the library with reports he'd brought home from the office. He was deep in quarterly projections when a soft knock interrupted his concentration. Lily stood in the doorway, a large flat package wrapped in brown paper under her arm. "Got a minute?" she asked, uncharacteristically hesitant. "Of course." Bobby set aside his work, giving her his full attention. Lily entered, setting the package carefully on the coffee table. "I made something for you." Bobby looked at the wrapped object, understanding it was a painting. "May I open it?" Lily nodded, perching on the edge of an armchair, her posture tense as Bobby carefully removed the paper wrapping. The painting took his breath away. It depicted the three of them, Bobby, Ethan, and Lily, seated at the kitchen table, caught in a moment of ordinary connection. Ethan was mid-laugh, his head thrown back in familiar exuberance. Bobby was passing a serving dish, his expression one of contented focus. Lily herself appeared in profile, a small smile playing at her lips as she looked at her brother. What made the painting extraordinary wasn't just its technical skill, but the emotional truth it captured, the tentative warmth of their emerging family dynamic, the unforced intimacy of shared space, the silent acknowledgement of their connection. In the background, visible through the kitchen window, the Boston skyline glittered like distant stars. "Lily, this is—" Bobby struggled to find adequate words. "This is remarkable. It's from last Thursday," she explained, "when we had Mrs. Henderson's lasagna. Ethan was telling that stupid joke about the penguin." Bobby remembered the moment with perfect clarity, one of those ordinary evenings that had somehow felt significant in its very ordinariness. "You've captured it exactly." Lily shifted in her seat. "I've been thinking about the papers, about names and legal stuff." Bobby set the painting carefully on the table, giving her his full attention. "And?" "My mum was Sarah Adams. She raised me alone, did her best for me always. I don't want to erase that." Lily met his gaze directly. "But you're my father. Biologically, yeah, but also now. In real ways that matter." Bobby nodded, not trusting himself to speak. "So I was thinking," Lily continued, her voice steady despite the emotion behind her words. "What if we did the adoption thing, but I kept both names? Legally, I mean. Lily Adams Mitchell or Mitchell Adams. I haven't decided which order sounds better." The proposal, so thoughtfully balanced between honoring her past and embracing her future, was perfectly Lily in its pragmatic compromise. "I think that sounds perfect," Bobby said, his voice rough with emotion. "Whichever order you prefer." Lily nodded, her decision apparently made. "Mitchell Adams, I think, alphabetical." "Lily Mitchell Adams," Bobby tested the name. "It has a certain ring to it." "It's just a name," Lily said with a shrug that failed to mask the significance of her choice. "But it feels right. For now, anyway." "For now," Bobby agreed, understanding that her identity would continue to evolve as she did. "Thank you for the painting. It will hang in my office at work if that's all right with you." "Really? Not here at home?" "At work, where I spend too many hours away from my family," Bobby explained, "to remind me of what matters most." Lily nodded, seemingly satisfied with this reasoning. She rose to leave, then hesitated. "I told Ethan already about the adoption and the name. He's pretty excited." "I imagine he is. He wants to throw a family celebration or something equally dorky." Lily rolled her eyes, but her expression held fondness rather than genuine annoyance. "Just warning you." "Consider me warned," Bobby said with a smile. "And Lily, thank you." She met his gaze briefly, allowing a moment of unguarded connection. "Yeah, well, families are complicated, right?" "Indeed they are," Bobby agreed. "The best ones especially." After Lily left, Bobby remained in the library, staring at the painting that captured something he'd never expected to have again after his divorce. A family bound not just by obligation or circumstance, but by genuine connection. The journey wasn't complete, not by any measure, but the direction was unmistakable. And for the first time since discovering Lily's existence, Bobby allowed himself to fully believe in the possibility of healing for all of them. Chapter 7. The Masterpiece. 6 months after Lily's first appearance at Massachusetts General Hospital, the Mitchell family stood together in the marble-floored atrium of the Suffolk County Juvenile Court Building. A small crowd had gathered for the unveiling of a newly installed artwork, Lily's restored community center mural, now prominently displayed where it would be seen daily by judges, social workers, attorneys, and the children whose futures were decided within these imposing walls. "You okay?" Ethan asked quietly, noting his sister's tense posture as they waited for the ceremony to begin. Lily nodded, tugging self-consciously at the collar of her new blouse, a concession to the formality of the occasion. Though she had gradually allowed a few carefully selected additions to her wardrobe over the past months, she remained adamant about maintaining her personal style, rejecting anything that felt like a superficial transformation. "Just weird," she murmured. "Having people stare at my stuff, at me." "They're staring because it's amazing," Ethan assured her, "and because you're officially the coolest person in our family now." That earned a small smile. Low bar. Ouch. True, but ouch. Their easy banter was interrupted as Judge Eleanor Winters, the same Dr. Winters who had treated Ethan, now revealed as both physician and juvenile court judge, approached the podium. The coincidence had initially shocked all of them, until Judge Winters explained that she maintained limited hospital privileges specifically to treat children in the foster system, believing medical continuity was vital for those with disrupted lives. "Good afternoon," Judge Winters began, her voice carrying the same calm authority it had in the hospital. "Today we dedicate an extraordinary artwork created by a remarkable young woman. This mural originally resided in a community center that served as a refuge for many children in our system. Its preservation and installation here ensures that those children's experiences, their struggles and their resilience, will be acknowledged by everyone who makes decisions affecting young lives in this building." As Judge Winters continued her speech, Bobby studied Lily's profile. She stood straighter than he'd ever seen her, chin lifted slightly, eyes fixed on the still-covered mural. The past 6 months had transformed her in subtle ways, not erasing the wariness and independence that defined her, but softening her edges, allowing glimpses of the person she might have been without early hardship. The adoption had been finalized 3 months earlier, a deliberately small ceremony with just the 3 Mitchells, the judge, and Bobby's attorney present. Lily had worn jeans and a new sweater, her concession to formality. Ethan had insisted on taking them all for ice cream afterward, an unexpectedly perfect celebration of their unconventional family. "And now," Judge Winters concluded, "I invite Lily Mitchell-Adams to say a few words before we unveil her extraordinary creation." Lily froze, her eyes widening in alarm. "You didn't say anything about speaking," she hissed to Bobby. "It's optional," he assured her quickly. Just a brief thank you would suffice, or I can speak on your behalf, if you prefer. For a moment, it seemed Lily might choose the latter option. Then, with visible resolve, she stepped forward to the podium. Her hands gripped its edges as she surveyed the assembled crowd: court officials, social workers, foster care advocates, and a small group of teenagers from Horizon Youth Shelter whom Bobby had arranged to transport to the event. "I'm not good at speeches," Lily began, her voice soft but steady. "I'm better at showing things than saying them, that's why I paint." She paused, gathering her thoughts. Bobby and Ethan exchanged glances, both resisting the urge to step forward in support, understanding she needed to do this herself. "I made this mural when I was 12, right after my mom died. I had just entered the system." Lily's knuckles whitened against the podium. "I painted these kids because nobody was seeing them, seeing us for who we really were. Just case numbers, problems to solve, beds to fill." The room had fallen completely silent, the usual shuffling and whispers of formal gatherings, stilled by the raw honesty in Lily's voice. "Every face on this wall is real. Some got adopted, some aged out, some are still waiting." Lily's gaze swept across the room, landing briefly on the Horizon teens who watched her with solemn recognition. "I wanted them to be remembered, to be seen, not as statistics but as people with dreams and talents and value." She straightened, confidence growing as she continued. "This building is where decisions get made about kids like us, where people in robes and suits decide where we sleep, who takes care of us, what happens next. I hope when you look at this mural, you remember that each file on your desk is a real person, someone who needs to be seen." Lily stepped back from the podium, giving a small nod to indicate she had finished. The applause that followed was genuine, several court officials blinking rapidly as they clapped. Judge Winters returned to the microphone. "Thank you, Lily, for that powerful reminder of our responsibility. And now, the unveiling." 2. Court officers removed the covering, revealing the restored mural in its entirety. Gasps rippled through the crowd as the artwork's impact registered, not just its technical skill, but its emotional power. The children's faces looked out from the wall with expressions ranging from despair to defiance to tentative hope, their humanity impossible to ignore. But it was the addition at the far right edge that caught Bobby's attention, a new section. That hadn't been part of the original mural. 3 figures stood slightly apart from the others. A tall man in a business suit, hand resting lightly on the shoulder of a teenage boy in athletic clothes, both looking toward a girl with a paintbrush, who was adding color to the gray world around her. Though stylized, the Mitchell family was unmistakable. Bobby glanced at Lily, who met his gaze with quiet certainty. He understood without words. She had connected her past to her present, acknowledging that both were essential parts of her story. As the formal ceremony concluded and guests mingled with refreshments, Judge Winters approached the Mitchell family. "Remarkable work, Lily," she said, "both the art and the speech." "Thank you," Lily replied, more comfortable with the judge than with most authority figures, perhaps because she had first known her as the doctor who had helped save Ethan, "for giving it a home here. It's we who should thank you. This will serve as a daily reminder to everyone in this building." Judge Winters turned to Bobby. "Mr. Mitchell, a word?" They stepped slightly aside, though Bobby maintained visual contact with his children as they spoke with some of the Horizon teens. The Boston Arts Foundation is establishing a scholarship program for young artists from disadvantaged backgrounds, Judge Winters explained. "Given Lily's extraordinary talent, I'd like to nominate her for consideration." "That's very kind," Bobby began, "but financially—" "This isn't about money," Judge Winters interrupted. "The scholarship includes mentorship with established artists, exhibition opportunities, and potential college preparation. Based on merit, not need." Bobby understood the distinction immediately, an opportunity Lily could earn on her own merits, not a handout from her newly discovered father. "In that case, I think it would be appropriate to discuss it with her directly," he said. "Lily makes her own decisions about her artwork and education." Judge Winters smiled approvingly. You've learned a lot about parenting a teenager like Lily in a short time. I've had excellent teachers, Bobby replied, glancing toward his children. Both of them. After the ceremony, the Mitchells walked together through the public garden, enjoying the spring sunshine. Lily had immediately changed into more comfortable clothes, jeans and a t-shirt she'd stored in Bobby's car, but her demeanor remained thoughtful rather than relieved. "You were incredible today," Ethan told her, bumping her shoulder companionably, with his own. "Both your art and your speech, even Dad got misty-eyed." "I did not," Bobby protested automatically, then relented, perhaps slightly moved. Lily rolled her eyes at their banter, but a small smile played at her lips. "Judge Winters offered me some scholarship thing," she said casually. "For art." "You were eavesdropping?" Bobby asked, unsurprised. "Obviously. It's about me, isn't it?" Lily shrugged. "Anyway, I'm thinking about it." "It sounds like a significant opportunity," Bobby observed neutrally, "based entirely on your talent." "Yeah, that's why I'm considering it." Lily kicked at a pebble on the path. "My art teacher's been talking about college programs too. Said I could have options if I wanted them." "And do you want them?" Ethan asked. Lily was quiet for a moment, considering. "Maybe. Not the fancy private schools you're looking at, but somewhere with a good art program. Somewhere I could make work that matters." The casual acknowledgement of future plans, of a future itself, represented enormous progress from the girl who had lived moment to moment, never looking beyond immediate survival. "Whatever you decide," Bobby said, "we'll support you." "I know," Lily replied simply, the two words conveying more trust than any elaborate declaration could have. They reached the famous "Make Way for Ducklings" statues, where Lily and Bobby had held their first real conversation months earlier. Lily paused, studying the bronze family of ducks with a thoughtful expression. "I used to come here a lot," she said. "Before, when things got bad in whatever placement I was in, I'd sit and watch families take pictures with these stupid ducks, pretend I was waiting for my family to come find me." Ethan's expression crumpled slightly at this revelation. Bobby placed a steadying hand on his son's shoulder, allowing Lily to continue without interruption. "Dumb kid fantasy," she said with a self-deprecating shrug, "but I guess it sort of came true in a weird way." "Not weird," Ethan said firmly. "Maybe unconventional. Definitely dramatic. I mean, I had to nearly die for it to happen, which was a bit extreme, but effective." The joke, balancing on the edge of inappropriate, broke the building tension. Lily snorted with surprised laughter. "You're such an idiot." "But I'm your idiot brother," Ethan countered, grinning. "Stuck with me now." "Lucky me," Lily said, dryly, but her expression conveyed the opposite of her tone. Bobby watched their interaction with quiet gratitude. The bond between his children had developed its own unique character, part bickering, part protective, entirely genuine. Ethan's natural openness had helped breach Lily's defenses, while her perspective had matured him in ways nothing else could. "So," Bobby said as they continued their walk, "Mrs. Henderson is preparing a celebration dinner for tonight. Ethan, did you invite Grandma Mitchell as we discussed?" "Yep. She's flying in from Florida. Should be at the house by now." Ethan glanced at Lily. "Don't worry, she's nothing like Dad, way more fun." "Debatable," Bobby muttered, though his expression remained fond. "She's excited to meet you," Ethan told Lily. "Been asking about you, non-stop since Dad told her." Lily's posture stiffened slightly. "What did you tell her about me?" "The truth," Bobby said simply, "that I recently discovered I have a 15-year-old daughter who is extraordinarily talented, remarkably resilient, and has agreed to give our family a chance, despite having every reason not to." Lily absorbed this, some of the tension leaving her shoulders. "Okay, I can handle that." As they approached the Mitchell mansion, Bobby's phone rang, his executive assistant, whose calls he no longer automatically prioritized. "Mitchell," he answered, offering an apologetic glance to his children. "Sir, the London office is requesting your input on the Richardson proposal. The board is waiting for your decision before proceeding." 6 months ago, Bobby would have immediately diverted to his home office, cancelling any family plans without hesitation. Now, he made a different choice. Tell them I'll review the materials tomorrow morning. The board can wait 24 hours. But sir, the timing is critical. So is my daughter's celebration dinner, Bobby interrupted firmly. Family comes first, Jennifer. That's non-negotiable. He ended the call to find both children staring at him with varying expressions. Ethan with approval, Lily with something more complex. You didn't have to do that, she said as they entered the house. If it's important work stuff. Nothing is more important than this evening, Bobby said simply. The company will survive a slight delay. Before Lily could respond, a whirlwind of energy descended upon them in the form of Constance Mitchell, Bobby's mother and Ethan's grandmother, who emerged from the kitchen with Mrs. Henderson. There you are, Constance exclaimed, embracing Ethan warmly before turning her attention to Lily. And you must be my granddaughter. Let me look at you. Lily endured the scrutiny with surprising patience as Constance took in her features. Mitchell eyes, without a doubt, the older woman declared. And Sarah's chin, I'd wager. She was a lovely woman. Lily blinked in surprise. You knew my mom? Only briefly, dear. At a company event, years ago. Constance shot her son a reproachful look. Had I known she was carrying my grandchild, things would have been very different. Mum, Bobby warned. Oh, hush, Robert. Water under the bridge now. Constance turned back to Lily. What matters is that you're here, and we have years of grandmothering to catch up on. Rather than retreating from this onslaught of familial claiming, Lily surprised them all with a small, genuine smile. Nice to meet you, Mrs. Mitchell. Grandma. Con, please. Mrs. Mitchell makes me sound ancient. Constance linked her arm through Lily's with casual confidence. Now, tell me about this magnificent artwork you've created. Ethan's been emailing me photographs, but I want to hear from the artist herself. As Constance guided Lily toward the living room, Ethan sidled up to his father. Grandma Con's taking over. Poor Lily doesn't stand a chance. Your sister has survived far more intimidating situations than an enthusiastic grandmother, Bobby pointed out. But I appreciate your concern. I'm not concerned, Ethan clarified. I'm enjoying the show. Grandma's the only person I've ever seen who can outstubborn both you and Lily. By dinner time, Bobby's prediction had proved accurate. Far from being overwhelmed by Constance's exuberance, Lily had adapted to it with remarkable poise, answering questions directly and even sharing details of her artwork with increasing animation. The celebration dinner transformed from potentially awkward formal occasion to genuine family gathering, with Constance drawing out stories and encouraging connections with practiced ease. I propose a toast, Constance announced, as dessert was served. To family, those we're born to, those we discover and those we choose. May we always find our way to each other, however long the journey takes. They raised their glasses, sparkling cider for the teenagers, wine for the adults, in a moment of simple unity that would have seemed impossible months earlier. Later that evening, after Constance had retired to the guest room and Ethan had retreated upstairs, Bobby found Lily in the solarium. She sat cross-legged on the floor, sketchbook open before her, drawing in the dim light. May I? He asked, gesturing to the space beside her. Lily nodded, shifting slightly to make room. Bobby lowered himself to the floor, a position his corporate associates would have found shocking, and settled beside his daughter. Your grandmother can be overwhelming, he acknowledged. You handled her remarkably well. She's nice, Lily said simply. Different from you, but nice. Different how? More open. Less. Lily searched for the word. Less guarded. Bobby nodded, acknowledging the accuracy of her assessment. I've always been more reserved, more focused on achievement than connection. It took almost losing Ethan to make me realize what that cost me. Lily continued sketching, her pencil creating flowing lines that gradually revealed three figures, a woman and two teenagers, seated at a table laughing together. Grandma Con told me about when you were a kid, she said casually. How you built model planes and wanted to be a pilot before you took over the family business. Bobby smiled faintly at the memory. That was a long time ago. She said you were happiest when you were building things, creating something from nothing. Lily glanced up briefly. Like me with art. The observation and its implication of inherited traits beyond eye color or blood type touched Bobby deeply. Perhaps there is some similarity there. I've been thinking, Lily said, returning to her drawing, about what Judge Winters said, the scholarship, the mentorship stuff. And? I want to try for it, see what happens. Lily's pencil paused. If that's okay. More than okay, Bobby assured her. It's an excellent opportunity. It would mean committing to staying here, in this house, with you guys. Lily kept her eyes on her sketchbook. Long term. Bobby understood the significance of what she was really saying. Her first voluntary commitment to their family as a permanent arrangement rather than a temporary experiment. We were rather hoping you would, he said, careful to keep his tone. Light despite the emotion behind his words. Lily nodded, resuming her drawing. Good, that's settled then. They sat in comfortable silence as moonlight filtered through the solarium glass, casting silver highlights across Lily's artwork. The drawing took shape. Constance, Ethan, and Lily at the dinner table, caught in a moment of shared laughter. You're not in this one, Bobby observed. I'm working on a series, Lily explained. Different configurations of... She hesitated, then finished softly, of family. I see. Bobby understood the deeper meaning, Lily exploring through art what family meant to her now in all its various permutations. I started it the night I gave you that first painting, she continued. The one for your office, I'm calling it Belonging. An appropriate title. Yeah, Lily's pencil stilled as she studied her work critically. It's weird how things turned out, isn't it? If Ethan hadn't gotten sick, if I hadn't heard about it somehow, if I hadn't come to the hospital that night. Many coincidences aligned, Bobby agreed, or perhaps something more than coincidence. Lily glanced at him skeptically. You don't strike me as the everything happens for a reason type. I'm not, generally speaking, but in this case... Bobby gazed out at the night sky visible through the glass ceiling. In this case, I find myself grateful for whatever forces brought you to that hospital, however they operated. Me too, Lily admitted quietly. Most of the time, anyway. The qualification made Bobby smile, so typically Lily in its honesty. Only most of the time? Well, Ethan can be pretty annoying, and you're still learning how normal humans talk. Lily's tone was teasing, softening the critique. But yeah, mostly I'm glad it worked out this way. As am I, Bobby said simply, more than I can adequately express. Lily set down her pencil, studying her completed drawing with critical attention. It's still a work in progress. The whole series, I mean, still figuring out how all the pieces fit together. The best masterpieces often take time, Bobby observed, and families are the most complex masterpieces of all. Lily considered this, then nodded slowly. I guess we'll see how it turns out. Indeed we will, Bobby agreed, his heart full with the certainty that whatever shape their family ultimately took, the journey itself was the masterpiece they were creating together.